Well, I don't know if there's anything more Minnesota in the springtime than crappie fishing. I think in Minnesota in April, early May, I'm thinking spring turkeys, I'm thinking crappies. And so, you look at a lot of this inland water, and this is, pretty typical in a lot of Midwest states. The game fish seasons are closed, but you can come out here and catch crappies. And it's truly a phenomenal fishing experience. I don't know too many people that don't love to fish for crappies. We're with Matt Klug, who spends a lot of time fishing in central Minnesota, especially around Mille Lacs.
Yeah, I kind of get all over the place.
Yeah, you're kind of a...
I'm a traveler wherever
gypsy.
The bite's good.
Yeah.
I like to catch fish.
And basically we're just exploring some lakes basically right outside the metro area of Minneapolis. And so, these opportunities are pretty readily available.
Yeah, you don't have to go 3 hours from the metro to get on some pretty good fishing.
No, if you live in Minnesota, you don't have to go 3 hours.
No, you really don't. we have lakes everywhere, so
yeah,
we're kind of spoiled.
More than 10,000 lakes, and there's got to be crappies in almost every one of them.
Yeah, I'd believe that.
There he is.
There you go.
Fun stuff. No matter how old you get, you never get tired of a bobber going under, you know what?
Definitely not.
Oh yeah, look at here. There we go. When you get in these metro lakes, I would say 10, 11 inch fish, that's a nice crappie.
That is a very nice
That's just a great fish for the table. There are bigger fish, but I tell you what, there's nothing wrong with that. You come out here, catch a handful of these.
Yeah, and and when you can catch a bunch of them, it's a lot of fun, We might not get the 14s and 15s like some of the guys up north, but I can come out and catch 50 or 100 fish most days, so that's a lot of fun.
So spring crappie fishing, it's just a coveted opportunity. It's something that people look forward to every year, and it lasts for quite a while. These fish push up, and granted, warm stretches, stable weather will push these fish shallower, will put them in a better mood. You get cold fronts and colder temps will pull these fish out, but these fish want to get up and spawn, and so that's the anticipation. These fish are getting up in areas where they're going to eventually spawn, and it just provides a tremendous fishing opportunity. And the thing about it is that you can come out and catch a lot of fish, and it's a great way to knock the rust off every spring for so many anglers. You're looking at crappies in these lakes. These fish are going to push up in these shallow bays. They're looking for that warmer water. This is a pretty universal pattern everywhere, isn't it?
For sure, yeah. I'd say most of our lakes in the area, not all of them are going to have the numbers that these do, but, find those shallower, muddy bays, find whatever weeds you can that are still growing. Some of the lakes, the curly leaf pondweed's already coming up, and they'll stack up in those weed piles or just big expansive flats. We're kind of in 7 to 9 feet of water, and I would guess on most of our lakes you could probably run the edges or look at these big flats and catch something, whether they're bluegills or crappies. So in central Minnesota, we're extremely lucky to have lakes all over, and most of these lakes are loaded with panfish, whether it be crappie or bluegills. And before opener, it's something that most people do. They like to get out, get the boat running, make sure everything's working before opener, and go out and have some fun, maybe take the kids out, catch some crappies. And we have a ton of lakes that are just loaded with crappies. And it's a lot of fun to just get out and wet the line and get some hook sets before opener, just to kind of get things moving. There's plenty of fishing opportunities in the metro. It gets pretty busy sometimes, but there's plenty of fish to go around.
I think that's important for people to know.
Yeah, just because there's people out there, I wouldn't avoid going. You don't want to try to get on top of everybody, but just be friendly and you can have a good time. Look, we're catching fish after fish here.
There you go.
All right.
There we go. There. Not bad.
No, fun day.
Minneapolis Metro. So there's a lot of different things you could do to catch these crappies. Sometimes, you can use a bobber and a minnow, and bobber and a minnow is kind of a classic presentation that always catches fish, but a lot of people also use hair or marabou jigs or soft plastic. And the reason that the hair or the soft plastic or the marabou is popular is because it's more durable. And so especially for finding fish, casting and reeling, you can find fish a lot faster, and then it's also more durable, so you can catch more fish on it. And so I find that typically if you have a cold front or just some tough fishing conditions where the fish are just in a real bad funk, say this water temperature drops 5 degrees, that might be a deal where you use a slip bobber and a minnow. But the thing about this is that, you know, when we're using these clip-on bobbers, you know, we're less than, you know, a lot of times we have them set, you know, 3, 4, 5 feet of water. This clip-on bobber gives this jig a different action. And so you cast the bobber out, you're twitching it. It's like a pendulum where that jig will slide and stop, whereas if you use a slip bobber and try to twitch, every time you raise the line, that jig's getting pulled up, that line's getting pulled up through the grommet on the slip bobber, and so the jig raises really high in the water column. And so a lot of times for this twitch and reel presentation, the clip-on bobber is where it's at. And so we're using a firefly jig here today with just a small hair or feather jig from Northland Fishing Tackle. You see how small and delicate that is, but I mean, you can catch 50 fish on one jig. Another really popular jig, these gypsy jigs. That's again, you know, made by Northland Fishing Tackle. You see here, just got a little bit brighter, longer tail on it. And then for casting and reeling, just a thumper crappie king here, just a soft plastic grub, just a small tail, just an underspin blade. I mean, that's caught all kinds of crappies. And so later on in the year, I'll have a tendency to cast and reel. But right now, early in the spring, that bobber hair jig combination is just deadly because you can slow it down, you can twitch it. And probably the biggest thing is you can use a lot of different styles of bobbers. You can use, you know, pencil bobbers that stand up. Sometimes that might be better for detecting an up bite, but what we're finding is that this water is really clear. These fish are spooking. I mean, we're not catching many fish closer than 15, 20 feet from the boat. We got to get it away from the boat. So we're using a little bit bigger bobber here. So this here's just a light bite Northland bobber, but you can see on the bottom here, it's got that lead weight added to it, and that's just for getting it away from the boat and making those long casts. There it is. That's a nice one. You know, that water's pretty clear. Oh yeah, big old mouth. Look at that, yeah. Good stuff. Still using the same jig. Isn't that something? Probably missing a little bit of hair. Yeah.
Sometimes they work better the more beat up they get.
You know, I believe that. I think they get chewed up and they get more action. Thinner hair is better. That's beautiful. Nice. Yeah, I just love, you know what? I just love catching a fish on a bobber. I loved it when I was 5 years old.
And you'll love it when you're 95 years old.
Absolutely. I could stare at a bobber and watch it go under all day long. That's what's making this so fun. I think the bobbers are actually working better too. I mean,
I think so.
You tried casting a jig, but you know, the bobber just enables you to slow it down.
You can keep it in the strike zone.
Yep. Keep it up out of the weeds.
Yeah, and that's interesting because the other day it was the opposite. I definitely caught more fish. As long as I was able to keep my line straight and keep a bow out of it. It was so windy, it was tough, but I definitely caught more fish without a bobber. Yeah. And maybe because of the wind, the bobber wasn't working as good because then the bait was constantly bouncing up and down.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, look at that.
All right, doubles.
You know, we're just kind of scooting around here, and obviously, you know, we can find them with the active target, but you know, we'll lose them. You know, we'll catch 10, 15 fish and then kind of wear out our welcome, and we don't see any fish on the screen, so we'll just scoot up 50 feet, 100 feet, pan around again and try to get back on them. These fish are moving around a little bit.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch to the right.
We get a lot of questions on forward-facing sonar. And there's different ways that you can do this. You can mount the transducer onto your trolling motor, but what I find is that when you're autopilot, it's always going to be facing ahead, upwind or up current. And so, as far as panning, like right now, we've got the anchor mode, and then we can pan independently. And so this here is just a Bruce City arm. You see this, wherever the arrow's pointing, that's where the transducer's pointing. And so you can slowly pan, and it's basically just shooting ahead. So I'll show you here on the screen here. Now this is the bottom. Okay, this little clutter, this band of clutter right here is the surface of the water. You can see once we get out past 30, out to 40 feet, you lose a lot of your definition. Now this little clumpy stuff on the bottom, that's probably weeds. And so for these crappies, they're up off the bottom, and so usually they'll show up really well. So I'm just going to pan slowly. Look at there. See these high marks that are really bright? Those are the fish. And so you'll see a lot of stuff on the bottom, but if it's kind of attached to the bottom, if it's not moving, in this case it's probably not what we're looking for. But these crappies, they've been halfway down the water column. And so you just look at where your arrow's pointing, that's where you have to cast.
There's one.
Got one dogging you?
Yeah, it's pulling.
Oh yeah.
That's a little better fish. We've caught so many this size. I ended up having to put a new jig on because I lost mine, unfortunately, but we were talking about that hair, and like you said, the more you use it, it seems like it gets better. And now I got to start with a fresh one and get it all broke in again.
Well, it won't take you long.
No, it won't take me long today. It doesn't take long when you're catching as many as we are. So one thing you really want to think about in the spring too is in the morning, it's not always going to be the best, just because you got to think that water cooled off all night long. And now you got to wait for that water to warm back up for those fish to start getting active. We got out pretty early this morning and the bite was a little slow, but by the time the sun got high in the sky and started penetrating that water, it warmed up, and so did the bite. There we go. Just another beautiful crappie.
No, that's a perfect eating fish right there.
It absolutely is. And that's kind of the name of the game down here. A lot of the people, they want to get a meal of fish and have a good time. And a lot of my customers, they just want to take their kids out and catch a bunch of fish, and it doesn't get much better than coming out this time of year and putting a bunch of fish in the boat and just having a good time, bringing some fish home to eat.
This is probably one of the most popular things for a lot of people. I mean, everybody loves crappies.
For sure, and there's something about crappies that everybody loves. It's like walleyes and crappies, everybody gets excited about it. And everybody fishes crappies. We were talking about it earlier. It doesn't matter if you're a bass fisherman or a walleye fisherman or a pan fisherman, everybody enjoys catching crappies, especially this time of year, being our game fish season is closed. You can come out here and on a lot of our lakes and catch a bunch of crappies, and they're just fun.
You look at life and you look at people, I've often said that fishing's good for people. The more you can fish, the more you can get outside, the better you're gonna be. And for a lot of people, especially, you look at the Minneapolis Metro area, tell you what, if you got to drive 3, 4, 5 hours to go catch fish, yeah, it's fun, it's nice. You go to some faraway destination where the fishing's phenomenal, but it's also so important that you can catch fish right down the road, where you can just go and catch fish after work, where if you just go out for a half day, we're just 10, 15, 20 minutes down the road, and you can do it a lot, and you can just recharge your soul. It's so important that we have these opportunities that people take advantage of, and that's why these metro opportunities are so important and so cool, is that, we need people out there experiencing and enjoying that, because, if everybody fishes a little bit, everybody gets along a little bit better, I believe. It's just a lot of the world's problems go away when you're fishing. This is fun.
Isn't it? Yeah, it doesn't get old. Hook set after hook set. This one feels all right.
You got a good one?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Sometimes they're just strong-willed.
Yeah.
If a person gets out late ice, a lot of times you can find these fish you know, maybe on the edge of a basin or starting to push up onto some shallower flats near where they're gonna spawn. So pay attention when you're out late ice or later in the winter where those fish are located at, and just kind of, you know, take note of that, because those fish aren't gonna move far. You know, most of them aren't gonna swim across the lake to spawn. Now on some lakes they obviously will, but right now, a lot of these fish are just on big expansive flats or on the edges of basins. You know, it really depends on the lake. We have some lakes that are extremely steep drop-offs, and they're gonna come from the basin and move right up to a hard bottom spot, whether it's next to some bulrushes or some gravel or whatever. But be looking for these flats that they can roam right now before they slide up to spawn. You know, these fish are gonna start getting a lot more active. We're right in the low 50s right now, and once they get close to 60, they're gonna start having their beds made and getting ready to spawn. You know, look for hard bottom. A lot of times right now you're gonna find fish roaming in areas that are kind of muddier, because for one, that water warms up faster because it's got a dark bottom, so that water warms up quicker, but that they're not necessarily gonna spawn there. So look for somewhere with a hard bottom, and those fish are gonna be pushing up there once they go to spawn.
Oh, there's a good one.
Double.
All right, what do you got?
That feels
Mine's
about the
staying
same as
down.
the rest.
Oh, yeah,
That one's a little better, yeah.
That's a nice fish,
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I think you win on that one.
This would go in the live well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that one's probably 11 inches.
All right. You know, so I'm just using braided line. I like braid for casting, and then I like it for setting the hook when I got this bobber a long ways away from the boat. Blow the braid. I'm just using a fluorocarbon leader. Again, this isn't anything too finessey in the sense that, you know, I'm using 8-pound fluorocarbon leader just so I can lift these fish in all day and not have to worry about it. But when you're using this leader, a little trick that Scott Merwin actually showed me crappie fishing is, you know, just use a loop knot. That way you never have to adjust the knot. You never have to worry about the jig. That jig's always riding horizontal. Gives it nice action. Loop knot on that jig, especially on that heavier fluorocarbon leader, works really well, and just an efficiency thing. Braided line, you can be 50 feet away from the boat, have no problem setting the hook. Oh. Kind of surprising how sometimes you just let it sit there and they hit it.
Right. Yeah, I think sometimes they just, if you move it too much, they don't seem to want to eat it. It's just enough ripple on the water to move the bait down there. You know, growing up we used a lot of live bait, whether it be minnows or waxworms and whatnot, and they obviously work really well. The problem is we're making long casts. So a lot of times just casting will throw that bait off. Not to mention the durability of the plastics and hair jigs and stuff like that. I can catch 20, 30, 40, 50 plus fish on one bait, where when I'm using live bait, I'm pretty much rebaiting every fish or every other fish. So I can just keep my bait in the water longer, which I think gets me more bites. That was the spot.
How'd you feel?
It's a little better. Better than the last one, but it doesn't take much.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Here we go.
That's a little better. Don't be afraid to try some different things, different colored jigs, different plastics, different baits, maybe different floats even. Small things can make a huge difference, even the way you hook your bobber. Today we were using a bobber that you could clip it on top and bottom, but I found that when you clipped it on the top, the bait just didn't move the same when you'd move the bait. So just those small changes can make a huge difference. How's that one feel?
Well, this one might be a little better one.
All right.
Oh.
That one's a little better. I'll take those all day, every day.
Oh yeah. Good way to spend a spring day, you know what?
Right? Yeah, it doesn't get much better than a whole bunch of hook sets and not being cold.
Come on up here. Boy, isn't it
Oh, that looks
beautiful,
better.
though? Oh
Yeah.
yeah, look at there.
That's a nice fish.
That is a nice crappie. Lift him in. Oh,
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Isn't that why we're here?
Yes,
Look at that.
we are.
Just beautiful. It's like the first nice day of the spring of 2022, and what better way to spend it than doing this right here.